So welcome. I am Laura Quinn. I am the founder and the executive director of Idealware. Idealware, for those of you who may not be familiar with us, is a nonprofit organization. We're a 501c3 ourselves. And our mission is to provide information to help other nonprofits make smart technology decisions. So we do research-based information, lots of reports, articles, all published free on the web, and a whole bunch of training, like we are excited to partner with LSNTAP again this year. Fantastic.
And my name's Brian Rowe. I run the National Technology Assistance Project. It is housed in-house at Northwest Justice Project, which is a legal services organization in Seattle. Myself and Liz Lehman, who is also here on this line, on this webinar today, run the project, and we're basically here to help any legal aid organizations with implementing new technology. And this is the first in our series this year of what looks like it's going to be 11 webinars. We'll also be doing a series of roundtables this year. But feel free to contact us, ask any questions, or anything that comes up in this that you want more information on. We're happy to get it to you.
Fantastic. Sounds great. And we are lucky today to have Ken here with us. Ken, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. It's, as I said earlier, it's wonderful to be in such good company. Just the work that Idealware and that Brian and in your short time there that Liz have given back to the legal services, legal aid, technology community, technology space is just fascinating. I'm the information technology manager at the Asian Pacific Legal Center of Southern California, a member of the Asian American, we're going through a rebrand for Advancing Justice, which I have to say now that we say our name. And I've been here for 9 years. I'm a networking guy, a sysadmin, and at the same time, I'm really one of those technologists who believes that while blinky lights may be awesome, it's kind of how does my work help move forward the amazing work that just a lot of other legal aid technologists, the amazing work that your organizations does. Just trying to create the alignment and support for that work.
Terrific. And Brian, are you hearing a fair amount of noise on the line?
I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. If anybody who recently just joined, if they could go in under the phone and...
Brian, are you hearing a fair amount of noise on the line?
Yes, I am hearing a little bit of noise here. If there's anybody who just joined, if they could mute their line unless they're talking, I think we're getting a little bit of feedback through the system.
So under the phone icon in your top nav bar, click the phone and then click mute. We can mute everybody, but then we'll need to unmute all the speakers again, which is, as we learned earlier, a dangerous prospect. So let's, while we are thinking that, and so please do go to the phone icon, everyone, and check to see if you're muted, and if not, mute yourself. While we're doing that, I would love to hear some of the things that you are hoping to get out of this seminar today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about some free and low-cost tools. Are there any particular tools that you're hoping I'll talk more about than others? Are there any things you'll hope I'll help to clarify in the world of free and low cost? Enter a few words into the chat to say maybe one thing you're really hoping to hear today. I'm going to sit here in silence and wait for you to type. Terrific. And then test your multitasking by reading some of your colleagues' answers. William says remote technologies. Interesting. Robert says file indexing software to index lots of documents. Interesting, and we'll be talking about some of that, although it's not as free as you might hope. Brian says Dropbox or other file transfer options. Absolutely, we're going to be talking about at least 2 or 3 of those. Fantastic. Other thoughts? We've got 28 people on the line. Allison says cloud file management. Absolutely. So in the realm of Dropbox and other files. All right. So let's get underway. Yeah, Brian, does it make sense to dive in?
Sounds great.
Fantastic. All right. So we're talking today about 35 free and low-cost tools. So what does that mean? So we're going to start by talking a little bit about the true cost of free. So how to judge whether something is actually low cost or whether it is technically cost no money up front, but it's going to cause you all sorts of money and pain and heartache down the road. And then we're going to walk through 4 different areas here: infrastructure, productivity and data management, program support, external communications. We'll wrap it up with the idea of thinking it through, and then we'll just close on our last 4 of our 35 resources, which are free websites that can help you with your technology. So let's dive in with the true cost of free here. So obviously, as nonprofits, none of us have a ton of money to spend. So why wouldn't you just automatically opt to get, for instance, all of your software for free? So free, in quotes, is not always really free. So it can be free, as we say, like free as in puppies. The puppy itself is free, but you're then getting yourself into a whole lifetime's worth of feeding the puppy and raising the puppy and taking him for walks and, vet bills and all of that stuff. So just because it costs nothing up front doesn't mean that, like a puppy, the software is going to be free for the whole lifetime. So you want to think about the whole cost, sometimes called the total cost of ownership, or TCO. So you've got the purchase cost, and you can have a spectrum here. So it might be free to purchase, or it could be really expensive. You then want to think about the implementation cost. So how much effort is it going to take you to get up and running? And this could be a fair amount of time, which, time is money, as we know, because your staff could be doing other things other than implementing complicated projects. Or you could essentially hire a consultant, which would then translate your time into actual money. And then you want to think about long-term support. So how much time is it going to take up in, troubleshooting down the road, in supporting your staff down the road, in keeping it up, in installing updates, things like that. So there's a whole lot of different kind of things to think about when you're thinking about free. And we're going to go through in these 35 tools to highlight actually pretty low-cost options. So including things that are free, but hardly anything is actually free when you include implementation and support down the road. And we're going to actually, so as we go through the 35, we have this nifty little sun scale of kind of green, yellow, and red. So green is actually comparatively low cost in the long run. So this is stuff that is really very free or low cost and is probably a good bang for the buck. We've got some kind of yellow caution suns, so probably not actually an incredibly low cost of ownership, but may well be a good value for what you're getting. So you just need to understand what it is. And then we have this red where we have a few tools that come up a lot that are free but may well in fact not actually be even worth it. They seem free but in fact they're very expensive in the long run, and you can probably get a better fit on a non-free tool. So we're about to walk through the tools, starting with infrastructure. Ken or Brian, anything to add in this realm of just kind of thinking about the true cost of free?
No, I definitely agree that you have to look at the long-term cost, the implementation, service, how well people know the software, also whether it has a reputation of being supported long-term, because there's a cost to transfer to a new piece of software, and then if that company disappears in 6 months, is there a cost to transfer away?
Yeah, I would really echo that, particularly, and I think there's, for ourselves, like let's say here at the Legal Center, our litigation unit was using a time management piece of software. This is free and open source, Kimai, really nice piece of software. On one of the updates, Active Directory integration wasn't a feature that was supported, and so one day our litigation unit was like, hey, you know what, we've been using this for about the last month, because it's around how long it took someone to let us know in IT. it hasn't been working. When we looked into it, we found out what happened, and apparently the project is in the process of forking, like Brian said about long-term support. And so right now we're at trying to identify a replacement time management tool, and we might just go for something on the market. And the thing in cost as well is kind of utilization, kind of balancing the utilization, which I think are one of the hidden elements in implementation costs, because we've rolled out software before, which one or two users wanted and said they needed, and in the end, either through interface issues or it wasn't exactly what they wanted, where the utilization was so low that we just didn't re-up for it. So I think that's one of the hidden cost elements in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, so a lot of considerations here before you just kind of jump on board with something that is free. So don't do free just because it's free. That being said, let us jump in and talk about some actually free and low-cost tools, starting in the realm of infrastructure. Bless you. So first off, infrastructure is a key priority. So you should not think that you can support your entire infrastructure with free tools. So thinking about whether your computer starts up, you can access internet and files, do you have the software you need, those are going to be much more important than what you might be able to get for free. So start there. But here's some tools. So Google Apps. A good bang for the buck. I kind of struggled whether this was a green or a yellow. It is actually free. It costs nothing for 501c3s. It provides a replacement to Microsoft Outlook and Exchange, which is actually probably considerably easier to support down the road than Outlook and Exchange. It is, however, like any reasonably large software package, it's going to take some effort to get it set up, and especially to move any data from your old system to your new system. So it's not completely free of cost, but it's definitely worth looking into. For small organizations, for folks who have less than 40 or 50 people, it's a really compelling alternative to something like Microsoft Outlook Exchange. Tool number one. Tool number two. So part of Google Apps, but worth thinking about in its own right, is Google Drive. So this is a way, so you don't need actual Google Apps, you don't need to be up and running your whole organization on Google Apps to be using Google Drive. So this is what used to be called Google Docs, and now in addition to the Docs, it has some more substantial functionality to upload, organize, share, and then edit documents. Google Drive is completely free, and in fact, I think I put the yellow sun in the wrong place. The yellow sun was intended to be on the other one. So Google Drive is really actually a green sun, pretty actually free, while Google Apps has a little more upfront implementation, but is well worth considering. Microsoft Office 365 also has, Carlton asks, a couple questions here. Carlton asks, what is the size limit on Google Drive? It is pretty darn big. I don't know it off the top of my head. Does anybody else know what the size limit is on Google Drive?
I believe it's like
it is
6 gigs or more.
If you're trying to replace your whole file server with it, then it may well not be enough. But if you're simply looking to collaborate with an internal team, for instance. And Ken mentions Google Docs does not support pleading papers. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that, Ken?
Sure. I think that's been one of the barriers or the impediments for our legal teams. Our legal teams that actually go to court from using Google Drive more actively. Pleading papers are the line papers that upon which pleadings and motions, etc., are submitted to the court. So a lot of our legal staff, be they litigation or direct services, will generally use Google Docs as a collaborative kind of like drawing board and maybe do initial drafts. But then from there they have to export and dump it into Word, or for federal matters into WordPerfect, gasp. to submit it to the court. So it's not an end-to-end solution, particularly for people who have to use pleading papers.
Yeah.
And it also, as Allison is asking, it does not, in fact, sync to a hard drive folders as easily as something like Dropbox, which we're going to talk about next, or some of the cloud-based file sharing and backup resources, which we'll talk about after that. So it's a better kind of repository of not incredibly frequently used documents, or kind of like something to put up to get someone else to find, and something to work in all the time.
So two other quick things. First, I strongly agree with
I
Ken.
know that there's lots of thought in the legal sector in regard to, so Robert is asking, thoughts about privacy and confidentiality. Google's response to a subpoena or a government inquiry might be different than a law firm. I can certainly summarize many of the thoughts that have been given in the legal world. Do you have thoughts of your own here?
You know, when we made the migration, wow, maybe 5 years ago already. Wow. We did look at that, and I know that certain work units, particularly the work units on the legal side of the house, were very concerned. We had a conversation, we looked at the terms of services, and we also did the internal evaluation of what our security infrastructure would be like. As someone who does security, I actually felt a little bit more safe. I mean, of course, in an ideal world, Google would be doing something like zero knowledge, where things are encrypted to the point where they can't look in. But that's not their profit model, and they're not scanning the emails verbatim. And we just felt it was a wise choice. And it's something that most people, a lot of particularly small practitioners, use things like Hotmail and Yahoo and Gmail, etc. So we're not really stepping outside the realm, and generally speaking, through the admin tools, we're exercising controls that, to the best of my understanding, are reasonable steps, which is all that, from my understanding of the rules, that's all the professional rules require, is that we be diligent and mindful, and we try to do that. So that usually allays our concerns, or has allayed our concerns to this point.
Yep. And in fact, someone sent around the LSNTAP or LSTech listserv just a week or two ago a summary of rulings on whether or not, things like Google Apps, so cloud-based applications, were appropriate for use in legal technology. And the answer, I think it had in something like 14 states, there had been a ruling, and in all of those cases, they affirmed what Ken just said, that there's nothing about the cloud in of itself that is insecure, that it basically you need to do due diligence to make sure that it's not a particularly insecure cloud application. But yeah. So and in fact, the original question was in regards to subpoenas and government inquiries, and that is a realm in which, if you think that you're going to be that you're going to be subpoenaed, and you would throw yourself on your documents to protect them, and you would, for instance, fight a subpoena, then that might be a reason not to use a cloud vendor, because pretty much no cloud vendor is going to support or is going to contest the subpoena that's given to them, for instance, by the government.
Though, if I can add to that, one of the interesting things is that yes, if Google gets not a subpoena, but wow, I'm forgetting what the
security letter
is, but it's a national security letter. Yeah, excellent. Under the Patriot Act, Google would not be allowed to tell us, even if they wanted to. So, yes, and if we, on the other hand, as an organization, we would probably only respond to a subpoena or a court order. So there is that nuance there. But at the same time, I would feel that if the government wants something that we have, we would probably throw up the white flag immediately and give it to them. They're probably going to
get it eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Either legally or illegally, given that they are the government and current practice particularly around cybersecurity initiatives.
Terrific. So that was, I think, a really good and useful deep dive into cloud security, because we, in fact, have several, and privacy and issues there. We have several kind of things in the cloud that are coming up. So, for instance, Microsoft Office 365 now has a version which is free to nonprofits. This includes a online version of Outlook/Exchange without an actual Exchange server, as well as the actual Office applications like Word and Excel. So this is, I have not explored this very much myself to know specifically what you get in this package, but it is a pretty interesting option for people, especially people who are considering kind of their whole email, calendaring, productivity suites package.
We'll definitely look into that and post something on it. We've had some questions about it, and last time we looked in, that pricing had not been revealed yet for nonprofits. So.
Yes, I'm fairly certain that there is now a free version for nonprofits. So I think it's, in fact, really quite recent, which is also the reason we haven't looked into it. All right, Dropbox, which a couple people have mentioned. So Dropbox is a really nice quick file sharing tool. So the idea is that you set it up, and then you can have an actual folder on your desktop, and it will sync automatically. So I could have a folder on my desktop, and you can have a folder on your desktop, and automatically whatever you put in your folder syncs to my folder. So it's a really nice and free up to a certain reasonably sizable file limit. A really nice way to especially just share a few files across people. It's not going to, again, replace a file server. For instance, it's not well set up for lots of people accessing the same documents. It doesn't have very good controls around, for instance, what happens if two people try to upload the document at the same time. But it's a really nice, easy, kind of low impact, low effort way to share a file.
One quick comment on Dropbox is that Dropbox now fully supports a web-based application. So if you have your internal systems locked down to where people can't install software, they can go through the web interface and not need to install software to use it.
Oh, great. Let me just go through one more kind of file sharing type thought. Online data backup tools are generally not actually free, but are fairly low cost. So starting at $20 to $30 a month to have a complete duplicate set of all the files for maybe a 5-person organization. So it can be a really great option for, especially for backup. You can set it up to go against the file server and pull all the files off the file server on a periodic basis, like every night, for instance, and have basically an automatic backup solution that you don't need to do anything about, which is really the way you want to go with a backup. So any backup you need to actually remember to do is likely to not get done. All right, one last one kind of just in this realm of infrastructure. So everybody certainly needs virus protection and a general security package on their computer. Microsoft Security Essentials, which ships with Windows, is actually a very solid package in this regard. So it's free if you're using Windows, and it's pretty adequate for most people's needs in regards to virus protection. So a truly free and really pretty good program. All right, we've got a couple questions, and I'm going to turn it over to, actually, so Ken has a couple thoughts. Ken, you want to just talk about some of the things that you put in the chat?
Sure. I know that someone asked about Dropbox alternatives. Really nice alternatives, and one would be OwnCloud, which effectively is your own self-hosted Dropbox. It has mobile apps, etc. But that would be for an organization or an individual with the time or the ability to kind of roll this out on their own. Something that's pre-rolled is SpiderOak. SpiderOak is really a nice Dropbox kind of replacement, because they do practice zero knowledge, meaning that they have no idea what's in your box. The password reset process is kind of, it's not like jumping through flaming hoops, but it approximates that. It's not as easy as like, oh, hey, here's your new password, as they really, from end to end, practice the concept of zero knowledge, which I think for folks who are really concerned about storing data in the cloud, zero knowledge is kind of a framework to use. And as far as backup, an interesting option is CrashPlan, because CrashPlan has a host-to-host option, meaning I can back up, like let's say in my house, there's an Ubuntu desktop, and then my Mac PowerBook, and my partner has a notebook as well. They all back up to one computer across our own network. If we wanted to back up to CrashPlan in the cloud, then I think more than 5 gigs or something, then yes, we would be paying. But at least on our own local network at home, it provides us good backup infrastructure.
Just to make sure people know, if you recently joined, you need to mute yourself unless talking. It appears that we've got a little bit of feedback. So please check the little phone icon on Join Me and mute yourself if you are not currently talking or have a question.
Terrific. And a question from Allison. Actually, just a comment for Brian and Ken. I am on an actual phone connection rather than a VoIP connection, and it may be that that's the difference in the reverb. So that might be worth trying. But Allison asks, are there good cloud file server services for free? That's an interesting question, which to me it seems like a scary thing to be looking for. So basically, there's I have a couple thoughts there. So one, I would be nervous about, so if you are looking to have a cloud-based file server, that implies that you should have something that's going to really easily let you upload and download files, like for instance by having a synchronized folder on your desktop, because otherwise people are going to be wasting a lot of time getting things up and down. So certainly simply a server-based file server, so something actually on-site, is likely to make much more sense for an organization that actually has most of their staff in one office. The other thing is that in the realm of which, so if you're looking for someone to take all of your critical documents as an organization and store them and back them up and all that good stuff, I would be personally really nervous about looking for a free service to handle that, because ultimately most of these free services you're getting no guarantees. You know, you're getting service, and something like Dropbox, that's fine. You know, you're sharing files. If somehow the files go away, most people are using it to do limited sharing of things that are there. But if your entire file server goes away and there's no guarantees on what you're getting back, that's a much scarier process. So I personally would not be looking for free solutions for my file server. Kind of my thoughts. All right. Yeah, and Alice is saying paying is fine, just looking for alternatives. So in fact, these tools are, well, Amazon.com, not so much of a packaged product, but the rest of these are products that both do online backup and online file sharing. So there's some, and they also, almost all of them will sync to a folder on your desktop, like Dropbox does, but in a more kind of sophisticated way meant for sharing across an organization.